have people come in here all the time that I know are bullshitting me. I know they are. Like, I feel it, you know, and sometimes it's just like, all right, what are you going to do? I think some of the information that gets shared on this podcast is probably bullshit.
To kind of like, you know, muddy the waters. Yeah.
All right, so it looks like Joe Rogan is starting to act like he's realizing that his podcast is being used by grifters and politicians to make money and promote propaganda, specifically alien propaganda. Apparently, Joe thinks some of the information on his podcast regarding aliens is probably bullshit that's pushed by the government. I mean, it's hilarious that this is what's finally getting Joe to admit that the government's using his podcast. So he came to this realization after the podcast he did with that congresswoman who told him the government has evidence of UFOs and interdimensional beings. But of course, she couldn't go into any detail about it or really explain what evidence there is. So it was just a complete waste of time, and she sounded like an idiot. I mean, she wasn't even good at bullshitting us. At least other UFO guests, even if they're full of shit, they can come up with some interesting stuff to say, but she couldn't even do that. I mean, if she wasn't attractive, this would have been one of Joe's most disliked podcasts. Also because it's really obvious that Trump's administration pushed for Joe to have her on. Like, he almost admitted that the other day when he said he thinks the government sends people on his podcast to talk about aliens right after he had this congresswoman on. And during that podcast, you'd tell Joe was trying his best to go along with what she was saying and act like she's somewhat convincing. But there are moments where he was having trouble taking her seriously because it was just a complete joke. And I think Joe was probably even a little embarrassed about the episode because it was just that bad. And it was pretty obvious that it was being used as a psyop to distract from the Epstein Files cover-up.
But I do have to say that if I was the government and I wanted to like spread a bunch of crazy stories about UFOs, I'd tell them to people like Tom.
I guess so, yeah.
And I'd tell them to people like me. I mean, I think people do that on this podcast. I think some of the information that gets shared on this podcast is probably bullshit.
To kind of like, you know, muddy the waters. Yeah.
One of the witnesses had talked about what had happened at Vandenberg Air Base, where there was this thing that appeared over the base. It actually had multiple blotters reporting on it from phone calls into law enforcement from like hundreds of people. And whatever had appeared over the base was basically bigger than a football field and basically a red cube with some weird thing in the center of it. I
want to bring it back to evidence. You said that you've seen evidence. Like, what kind of evidence have you seen?
I have seen photos. I have seen...
what have you seen photos of?
So I was in a skiff, and I can't discuss all that was in a skiff, but what I can tell you is based on the photos that I've seen, I'm very confident that there's things out there that have not been created by mankind.
So you can't tell us what you saw, but...
I'm going to let you infer.
See, this is the problem that I have with all this stuff.
There have been incidences that I believe where very credible people have reported that there have been movement outside of time and space.
That's very vague.
Yeah. So, look.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. Look. Have I seen a portal open? No. Have I seen a spaceship? Personally, no. Have I seen evidence of this? Yes. Have I seen photo documentation of aircraft that I believe were not made by mankind? Yes.
Yeah, so Joe's acting like he's catching on, like he's just starting to figure out that he's a useful idiot. But he obviously knows his podcast is used for propaganda. He just doesn't care unless it's this obvious or embarrassing, like with this lady and also Kash Patel. Then he feels the need to be like, shit, I think they're lying to me. But of course, he knew this congresswoman was going to be full of shit, and there's a reason the government wants him to have her on. Like I said in my last video about this, a week before this podcast, Trump's administration had a meeting on how to handle the Epstein Files fiasco, and they discussed how they could use Rogan's podcast. And I'm sure Joe was told not to mention Epstein during this episode because this lady's the head of a task force, which I'm sure is just some bullshit thing, but it's supposed to be pushing for the release of the Epstein Files. So you'd think Joe would ask her about this. This would be a big topic, but he never mentioned it once. So I think they probably learned from the Kash Patel episode and how badly that went. I mean, almost everybody knew Kash Patel was full of shit during that episode. So having this lady try to explain how not releasing the files was a 4D chess move from Trump would have just made things 10 times worse. So they must have told her and Joe not to bring up Epstein, even though she did mention it once, but just to say that she's not using aliens to distract from it. So it's just comical. But I think Joe might be starting to feel a little guilty about these episodes. That's why afterwards he's like, guys, come on, I know guests are lying to me all the time. Because he said that right after the one with the congresswoman and then also right after the one with Kash Patel. he basically referenced Cash and UFO people because around the time of that podcast, also there's a former UFO guest of Joe's that has worked for the government. He claimed to release some pictures of aliens and UAPs, which were obviously just fake as hell. So everybody was clowning on him, including Joe. So between that and Cash Patel, Joe felt like he needed to say, like, guys, come on. I know these people are full of shit. I'm not stupid. And I'm pretty sure there's a cut while they're talking about that at the end of this clip. So I think Joe might have been a little too honest here.
Jamie, speaking of UFOs, did you see Lou Elizondo, these photos that are supposedly of a real alien?
Oh, here we go.
Bro, it's so dumb. The photos look blurry. Of the photos of the dead alien, like you can't even zoom in on that. You can't even fucking focus. Look at these. Yeah, that thing. Look at that. What is that? What's that? What is that? How about better pictures? This is crazy. These are the only pictures? Is this from the 40s? Like, what's this picture from? What is this?
Oh, people want to believe.
Bro, so bad. Me too. I'm like, maybe the bottom ones.
It was funny. Somebody asked me.
I do that sometimes when I'm questioning people and I know they're not telling me the truth. And I'll say, wait a minute. So what you're saying is, and so I don't even have to like say, that's ridiculous. That's fucking bullshit.
Yeah.
I just let the internet have it. You know?
Yeah, you go,
You know what I
really?
mean? Like Epstein didn't kill himself? You know, like that kind of a deal? Like, okay. You know, like let the internet deal with this. I'm not going to deal with this. This is like, I can only be so pushy. You know, when people don't want to talk about a specific thing or want to give you an answer that you think is pretty much gaslighting you, you're like, okay, so that's a real UFO? All right. You might, you know, I have people come in here all the time that I know are bullshitting me. I know they are. Like, I feel it, you know, and sometimes it's just like, all right, you just, what are you going to do?
You'll call them sometimes.
Sometimes, but like sometimes I don't know.
And it's so funny. He's basically like, I know a lot of my guests are full of shit and are grifters just trying to make money or promote propaganda, but what are you going to do about it? And he specifically mentions the UFO guests, but only a month or two after this, he had on this bimbo to talk about interdimensional beings.
So when you say that it operates outside our understanding of physics, what specifically are you saying? Like what happened?
To I guess break it down in simple terms is that I think that some of the tech that exists, that whatever these things have, these energy things have.
Energy things? What do you mean?
Well, they call them interdimensional beings. I think that they can actually operate through the time spaces that we currently have.
Yeah, so who could have guessed that this lady wasn't going to be credible? Definitely not Joe. Poor guy fell for it again. And even some of Rogan's comedy friends like Dan Soder make fun of him for doing podcasts like this. You know, and then afterwards being like, I think the government was just trying to use my platform, you know, like with this one and also the Cash Patel one.
Rogan's like, oh man,
really?
I think they tricked me.
It's almost like I think they like used me in my platform, and the FBI director lied to my face.
And it seems like these Rogan episodes of politicians just keep getting worse and more obvious. You know, so I can't wait to see what they come up with next. I mean, the episodes are entertaining, and even if Joe doesn't push back, enough people, I think, call out the bullshit now. Like, people are aware of what's going on. And I think Joe might be losing patience with Trump's administration. Like, if they don't show him some proof of aliens soon, they might lose him. Like, if they really want him to go all out, helping cover up the Epstein files, they just got to show him proof of aliens. That's all it takes. You know, that's all he's ever asked for.
I'll tell the government right now, tell you right now if you're listening, NSA, CIA, I'm available, okay? If you show me all the real wreckage, I swear to God, I will make fun of that crap to the end of time. I'll make up stories. I'll lie to my mother. I don't care. You show me a UFO, I'll lie to my mother.
Let's say an intelligence community to manipulate them than it is to come in here. Like an intelligence community is not going to go, all right, let's find...
All they have to do is bring me to the UFOs.
No.
That's all I
for
ask.
sure. You keep telling them that, yes.
That's all you have to do. What do you want me to do?
It's very easy.
We're going to go to war with Kosovo? I don't even know where Kosovo is on a map, but if you tell me where the UFOs are, I'll have a guy in here that explains why it's super important.
But it is funny. It's like what they'd have...
So they better show him some of those aliens soon if they want him to keep pushing government propaganda and distract him from the Epstein files, because it sounds like he's getting fed up with all the bullshit proof of aliens. And it's funny that might be the final straw for him. But let me know what you guys think down in the comments. And if you want to hear about how Epstein clients have been using Rogan's podcast to try to help vindicate themselves, or how Peter Thiel, a guy who took a giant loan from Epstein after he's a convicted sex offender, is Rogan's handler, And he was almost Tim Dillon's too, but I guess the food at his dinners wasn't good enough or something. So then he got JD Vance to start whining and dining him. So he might be under the Peter Thiel umbrella soon. But if you want to hear about that, or how Joe Rogan thought there's a woke reporter who infiltrated his comedy club and freaked out a couple months ago, make sure you check out my Patreon. There's over 150 exclusive videos on there. It's definitely worth it if you're a fan of the channel. I'll put a link in the description.